The European View podcast. Your place to navigate the insights of our policy journal, brought to you by the Martens Centre. With Sara Pini.
Hello, and welcome to the European View podcast, your way to navigate through the main issues of our policy journal with valuable insights from the author themselves. I'm Sara Pini, the Assistant Editor-in-Chief of the European View and the Senior Research Officer at the Martens Centre. And today I have the pleasure to welcome Arjen Siegmann, who is a professor of finance at the Vrije Universiteit of Amsterdam, research associate at the CDA Research Institute, and also a member of the Martens Centre Executive Board. In the latest issue of the European View, Arjen tackles a topic that might not seem urgent for young Europeans today, but is still a major concern for their future. This article is titled, "Who Will Pay for Young People's Pension? Fill in the gaps with the Capital Market Union." Of course, you can find this and all the other articles of the European View on our website, martencenter.eu. So, Arjen, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Sarah. Yeah, pleasure to be here.
So we have known for decades that pension system in many, if not most European countries is not sustainable as it is. There is a plethora of possible solutions, some proposals that have been put forward by experts. So why is this then the pension reforms are so hard to implement in Europe?
Yeah, that's a good question. Because if you look at France at the moment, a lot of problems turn around these pension issues. Maybe pensions are like the worst political problem or policy problem to have. Because you have, if you want to do anything about it, it will have immediate costs and the benefits will be in the future. Well, that's a problem that no politician likes to touch, because politically you'd rather have the opposite, that people feel the benefits right away and that the costs are not felt right away or in the future. And this pension problem has exactly the opposite properties. It's expensive and people are not happy if you do something about it. Especially when you need extra money somewhere, you would have to raise taxes or things like that. So it's tough.
And these biases that you identify in this article, they remind me of what you described in your previous article for the European View that dealt with the farmers' revolt in the Netherlands, which, by the way, I encourage our listeners to read too. This tendency to avoid short-term small losses, even if this means giving up potential gain in the future. How can we overcome this kind of biases in practice?
I'll give my one-line summary of that. What you're saying is that especially in pensions, you have your pension. I guess a lot of people who are retired know more or less exactly what they get every month. I think a lot of people know that. And if it's going to be reduced by a few euros, that feels painful. Because you have no labor income and you have to live from your pension. And there are some ways to overcome it. But I thought of an example. Because I'd like to put, when my kids were little, we played football on a little square. And sometimes they would get hurt, some kid kicked another kid. There's some blood. Dad, I have blood. The line with kids, I have blood. And my solution, so there's a little bit of a loss. Let's call it a loss. Someone has pain. But I was not very good at, applying, how do you call it? Pleisters, we say in Dutch. These things you put on wounds.
Plasters, yeah.
Plasters. Typical dad. I didn't know where that was. But my solution was to say, okay, you have blood, so now you're allowed to take a penalty. The free kick. And it always worked. They cheered up. No tears anymore. So maybe I thought this is an analogy of, if you have a problem like that, you have to find another frame that's more forward-looking, something to gain, something that gives a bit of joy. And not just focus on, how can we make the pain go away or make it less? Because it's not going to go away, maybe. Like pension reform will also be painful, always. So maybe it's better to look at other things that are related in a sideway matter. Be creative, come up with why do you want this reform? What are the good things that we're going to have in other areas? And that's something that people can think about.
Okay, so reformulate basically the issue.
and especially when it comes to pensions, maybe there are ways to, I don't know, to make it fun. Maybe take a little bit of pension out as an amount right away, or make ways that people can work longer and still keep their pension. Certain ways, or have postpone the pension and get a higher pension, which is more future oriented. Like, what can I gain, or what kind of pleasure is there in doing that?
Making pension reforms fun, that would be quite an achievement. But in your article, you propose a way to fill the gaps with the Capital Markets Union. How would that work? And if you were to advise EU policymakers, what concrete steps would you recommend?
That's not a simple question, Sarah. The Capital Markets Union. It's been around for a long time. So my ideas about this are that this Capital Markets Union will not solve the pension problem directly, but it could help a lot indirectly. Because the idea is at the moment a lot of finance is national. So every country has its own banks. They don't do a lot of activities cross border. I mean, they do, but they're not, let's say, European in that sense. I cannot easily as a Dutch person, I cannot easily open a bank account with a Spanish or German bank. That's just not easy. So the idea behind the Capital Markets Union is, what if we improve the situation that all these banks become European, maybe European stock market, and this will be good for the economy. This will lead to growth. It's good for firms. It's good for households to get a mortgage, things like that. And this growth will make also pensions more affordable. That's how simple it is. So pensions are not just a matter of paying more or less, into the system, but also if the economy grows, everything becomes a bit more affordable.
And of course, this would be not as painful as raising taxes or cutting expenses in other sectors.
Yeah, right. So,
but as you said, it's not enough. It would not be enough, Capital Market Union. So what other reforms do you think are essential to make pensions sustainable for future generations?
Yeah, I thought about this a bit. I mean, you sent me the questions before, so I had some time. That's good. Thanks, Sarah. If maybe the line is, can we learn from the Dutch? I'm not saying that our country is doing the best it can or it's perfect, but we have done some reforms, which seems to work quite well in terms of the economy. And if you look at Europe as a whole, European countries, it seems that there's a lot of potential to have, let's say, a labor market that functions a little bit better. So not just make it easy to fire everyone. That's also not what we have in the Netherlands, by the way. But make it a little bit more flexible, have better competition policy that firms can compete. And the biggest thing is to have a single market, that firms can do business across the border easily in Europe. I think that's what's needed now in the world.
Which is still not completely the case.
Yeah. And think about energy. That seems to be having one energy market in Europe. Seems to me that it's incredibly worthwhile to do. It's hard, but that would make our dependence on Russia less. It would give us better energy prices, lead to some innovation and growth. Firms need energy. So it seems to be that there's a lot of, I won't say low, but hanging fruit. There's a lot of hanging fruit, which you could do. And that are some reforms you could do.
To basically have a broader vision, not just focus on the pension reform itself, but seeing how the economy in general can help improve the situation.
And you might also say, well, if you do that, then at the same time, maybe you can also do some pension reform. It's not that you don't have to do it anymore. It's less painful if you have economic growth, because you can spread it out over more people or over time.
Now, in your article, you also argued that the CMU could help reduce the risk of a new doom loop, meaning this dangerous codependency between banks and governments that we saw in Europe with the 2008 financial crisis. Can you explain how this would work? And also, compared to then, to 2008, how fragile do we think Europe's financial system is today? You already kind of answered saying that we still have a very fragmented bank system.
Yeah, the doom loop sounds very exciting. I'm not sure I can explain it that well, because it's actually can be pretty tricky, but let me try it, yeah? I will explain it in a simple way. Maybe it's not completely right, but the idea is that banks and governments are connected with each other. And we saw this in the Euro crisis. Like if there was a problem with government deficits, let's just take the example of the Netherlands. Suppose the Netherlands government deficit is really high, but Dutch banks hold treasury bonds of the Dutch government. So they are connected and they go down together. So they go up together, they go down together. That's seen as a doom loop. Now, this was not the big issue in the Netherlands, but we can imagine it was countries like Italy, Greece, where that was going on. It seems that this particular doom loop is now, this risk has become much smaller with having a European banking union. So banks have to hold more capital, the rules are more strict. So that's a good thing. What I think is now a problem is that banks are now almost over-regulated. So they don't extend credit that much anymore as they used to firms and households. And that worries me a bit, that everybody becomes very risk averse. There's a good type of risk, let me put it like this. And maybe one other thing could be that we're also dependent in Europe on the Federal Reserve because they provide a dollar swap line to the ECB. Now, we've seen what's going on in the United States with the Fed. The president is now being indicted. This seems to be a fragility, a dependence that maybe we have to have a hard look at as well, whether we should do something about that. Because our banking system and our firms do depend on dollars. Maybe this dependency needs to change.
That adds to a lot of other dependencies that Europe should get rid of.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So one final question. If you could give one piece of advice to young Europeans who are worried about their retirement prospects, what would it be?
I would have two rules, The first rule is don't think about it. because people just don't think about their pension until they have it or almost have it. That's just, I don't think it will change. But and then the second rule would be take risks. So there's a saying, old people get prizes for what gets you fired when you're young. So maybe I would say get fired for the right reason. So don't get fired for mishandling someone. But if you get fired for taking some risks or doing things differently, well, maybe that's as good. Maybe young people should think about that. Take a risk.
Take a risk in what sense?
In your job, in your education, in your career. And I think that that's always a good thing.
But don't you think that if we postpone the thing about pensions too much, then it would be late? Because, if you want to have like complementary system, you should start thinking way ahead.
The point is, I don't think it will work, I don't think you can get young people to think about pensions. So it's maybe a waste of our all energies if we try to get them to think about it.
Okay.
You should think about your pension and they will fall asleep and maybe they get scared. So you don't want young people to be scared for that things.
Oh, yeah, you also don't want them to be without a pension.
Exactly. So, but if you do some things in your life, if you have a career, if you have your job, then at some point things will be all right. I would say it's more a matter of politicians taking responsibility for that.
Okay.
And not put the burden on the young people. I mean, what can they do?
I like your optimism.
Oh.
So thank you very much, Arjen, for sharing your expertise with us today. It's been truly insightful.
Thanks a lot.
And for those listening in, make sure to like, comment and subscribe and discover all the interesting insight of the European view on our website, martencenter.eu, and on all our social media channels. Thank you and stay tuned for more.
This was the European View podcast, your place to navigate the insights of our policy journal. Follow the Martens Centre for more.